Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Front Office U podcast. My name is Ryan Carney. Really excited to be hosting today's episode of Front Office U Friday. We have a really awesome guest joining us on the podcast today. But before we introduce him, I am joined by one of our co-hosts of this podcast, Victor Anderson, on the episode with me today from Seattle, Washington. What a place, Victor. Thanks for coming on. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. It's very cloudy, so typical Seattle weather. We'll be going for a walk. Hopefully, no rain this time. The last time was pretty brutal, with a mile left to do the walk. So I'm just excited to be inside here and be obviously on the podcast.
Glad to hear that. Glad you're not outside during the podcast. That'll happen later. But before we get any further, let's go ahead. Let's introduce our guest for the podcast today. It is Jagr Rinehart, Athletic Communications Assistant at the University of Minnesota. Somebody I got the pleasure of working with very closely this past year. It was a ton of fun to be able to share our experiences. But Jagr, first of all, thanks so much for joining the podcast and to kind of kick us off here for our listeners who may not be as familiar with kind of the world of athletic communications. We'd love for you to just kind of highlight some of your different responsibilities in the social media world, writing recaps, media relations, kind of how would you break down all that kind of makes up what is your role at the University of Minnesota with the Gophers?
Yeah, first, thanks, boys, for having me on here. It's an honor, and I'm excited to get to talk to you for the next hour to 45 minutes or so. But yeah, I think I would describe, my role as, sports information director and communications contact. I kind of put into three separate buckets, right? You have your social media, your audience front facing kind of materials, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, that kind of stuff. And then you have your media relations kind of bucket where it's scheduling press conferences, interviews with players, kind of any sort of media relation type ask or task sort of thing. And then the third one is obviously that sports info bucket where it's keeping track of statistics, in-game doing statistics, anything kind of in that world, and like I think a lot of sports information directors will tell you kind of the same thing. The role has certainly evolved since the start of the introduction of social media. So just kind of having that added on to a lot of these sports info uh, individuals' plates. So it's definitely been a changing role in my time in the industry for sure. So.
Yeah, 100%. Appreciate you kind of highlighting those. I think that's what kind of makes athletic communication so great. You get to do a lot of different things. No 2 days are the same, that's for sure. And even highlighting, the recent changes, like you mentioned, social media continues to expand. And I know you do a lot of work in creating graphics as well. And, I think that may be something that not everybody kind of realizes when they first think about or hear about athletic communications. I think the media relations aspect that you highlighted, maybe kind of that's always been around. And then kind of these added areas with the stats and the sports info and the social media are so big. So appreciate you kind of highlighting on your responsibilities where you're at now with the Gophers. I know we'll kind of dive into that more as we get a little further on in the podcast. But before we get any further, I do want to kind of take some steps back and talk about your background a little bit, Jagr. I know you definitely came up and developed this passion for sports and always had an idea that this would be something that you would want to do for your career. So let's talk about what were some of those sports that you played when you were younger, you watched, you followed, and who were maybe some of the people that really influenced you to kind of develop this passion for sports as well?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like only so much is up to me at that point, being named Jagr, kind of after a hockey player. So shout out
Yeah.
to my dad for that, where it's kind of like, oh, he kind of decided my career path before I was even, could think, kind of thing. So shout out to my dad for sure. But no, I remember the first sport I ever wanted to play was hockey naturally. But my mom is a pediatrician, just for a little background. So any full contact kind of sports were out of the question, unfortunately. So I grew up, I golfed a bunch. I swam for a little bit. I hated it. Not a swimming guy. And then I finally found my passion for basketball. I think fifth grade I started playing, played all through high school and still play pickup here and there and stuff. But definitely found that passion through for sports through basketball and played little league baseball growing up and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, kind of led me to this spot in my career now where I remember waking up as a kid every day, and the first thing I would do was go to the back of the newspaper and read the box scores for the Boston Red Sox and Minnesota Twins games the night before. So like kind of always was interested in those media statistics and news kind of thing before I even knew, what I do now is a possibility kind of thing. So just
Yeah,
crazy.
that's awesome to hear about. And yeah, it definitely goes to show, the impact that our family has on us in terms of sports, like you mentioned, with your dad naming you after Jaromir Jagr, obviously kind of stands out whenever you meet anybody that, especially people that work in hockey. But I think that's so awesome to share about some of your background and even getting into sports. But I think what's also interesting is kind of how you ended up at the University of Vermont. You grew up in Burlington, obviously very familiar with the University of Vermont. And, it was also a connection that kind of came through, people in your family as well. So for our listeners, what kind of went into that decision for you to end up going to college in your hometown at UVM?
Yeah, absolutely. Love Burlington. Great place. Love growing up there. Had a great college experience there as well. And it's actually funny. So my sophomore year of high school, I came and I toured the U here at Minnesota, and right after I was like, "Mom, I'm going here. I love the U. It's amazing. It's a wonderful campus. Hockey, all these Big Ten sports." And I was kind of sold, set on going there. And then my junior year, my mom actually got a position with the medical program at the University of Vermont. So I ended up, being able to go with tuition remission, going there for free essentially. So that was obviously can't say no to that. And all it turned out okay. The universe was like, hey, you're gonna end up at Minnesota eventually, but you got to stick it around at Burlington and at the University of Vermont for a little bit. But it was a great time. I loved it. Great people, great school in general, beautiful campus right on the water. Yeah, just a great time. So overall, great experience for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And like you said, the world works in funny ways sometimes. Very full circle for you to now be at Minnesota after continuing your experience in Burlington as a student there at
Exactly.
UVM, which is awesome. And I know you're able to get a lot of really good experiences, kind of start off and kickstart your career in athletic communications while you're there. So I'll pass it off to Victor here next. I know he'll kind of dive into some of those additional experiences here next.
Yeah, it's it's crazy. I mean, having the name Yager, just thinking about myself of thinking how many people know a Yager, and especially a person who works in sports versus like on the ice. So the full picture is pretty incredible, and the fact that you're able to still find success and then also figure out what's going to be best for you because you could have went to University of Minnesota, but you chose. You're like, you know what? Let me take some time and double check this just to make sure all my everything's basically set up for success for you. So I'd be curious to hear when you had, experiences at UVM, what was kind of something that you were kind of looking at right away, especially when it comes to the communication side, since you said you are a big stats guy, I imagine that you're probably like, all right, like sports is perfect. Like what sports can I do? I'm just curious on kind of what, the process was and then
Yeah.
obviously what experiences you got.
Yeah, it's actually so funny. So, I never even knew the going into college, the position that I have now existed or was a job or something you could do full time. My so my previous summer job I worked there for 6 years was at Burlington Country Club, this really nice golf course. I got to golf for free, which is why I did it for so long. It's a great perk. And one of my manager there essentially was a assistant director of communications at the University of Vermont. And he came to me my freshman year, going into freshman year, and he said he had a position open for his intern position, and he offered if I would be interested, and I submitted my resume and went through all that kind of good stuff, and got the position, got the role, and it was just I had no idea what I was getting myself into, no idea about it. But I was like, oh, it's sports, and I like sports, so I'm gonna go give it a try and give it a shot, and end up falling in love with it, and I'm on my way to making a career out of it. So it's crazy how that kind of stuff works, where you just meet the right people in the right places, and you kind of fall into stuff and find a passion, and it's just awesome.
Yeah, finding the passion and then the fact too, also finding out that's actually a department that you can
Yeah,
actually be a part of. I think that's something where I'm sure you can relate to, where it's like you actually had no clue, probably different paths you can go, like sales, obviously. Right now, the big thing is kind of AI. What's that going to look like? but your side's the communication, obviously making sure fans are engaged, but also making sure that like all the information that's sent out there is correct and not just stuff where we want to believe it's correct of like a player moving or a big signing of some sort. So you also talked about the Burlington Country Club, big golf guy. Like, what was I guess was there any cool like um, golf players that kind of came by? Because I know I worked at a driving range and we had the Minnesota Wild announcer come and obviously had no clue who I was, but I was pretty pumped when he came in there, acting like I was the best person in the world.
Yeah, no, definitely. There are definitely some former NHLers that, went to the University of Vermont that golf there for sure. I don't know if I want to, put their name on blast and stuff, but like Marty St. Louis come played there a couple times. Aaron Miller, kind of guys like that, that are just, great guys, beauties, that have come through and played there for sure. So yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful place, beautiful course for sure.
I was gonna say, well, us three will have to go over there and do some kind of golfing. I won't be the best, so Jagr, you'll have to be making sure I hit straight and no slices or anything. Top golf's really where I shine. Besides that, once you get on the course, that's where the skill level goes down dramatically there. So it's cool to hear that other NHL players and alumni go there, and it's something you don't even realize. Like golfing is really huge on the hockey side too, and a lot of the hockey players are really good golfers. I try to pick up things, and it doesn't obviously ever stick. But also something that we're always curious. When you're getting these positions, the biggest thing is setting yourself apart. And as you can imagine, like interviews, a lot of people, a lot of HR departments are always asking like, why should we hire you versus this other person? I'm curious if you had like a pitch or something that you kind of were able to sell when you did get these positions.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think um, first and foremost, something that I've learned throughout my career is that the best mindset and personality trait to have is low ego, high output. Just nothing's beneath you. If someone asks you to do something, you have the means and capabilities of doing it. Please go ahead, go do it. Say yes to everything. Kind of mindset where you can just be a sponge, soak in all these tips and tricks going on around you. Um, I think it's just super valuable. And then two, I think as we mentioned AI a little bit earlier there, I think that like there's just the value of having a creative mind and a creative brain now and in the next 10, 15 years is going to be so valuable. Just having being able to have creative thoughts that are original and organic is going to be something super valuable, I think, in the coming years. So those are two things that I'm like, hey, this is what you're getting from me. You're getting someone who's dedicated, passionate, wants to help out in any way possible, and then also can think outside the box and think originally and creatively. I think are my two favorite traits and things that I try to, uh, you know, put out there for sure.
I like how you brought up AI because I think a lot of people nowadays are like, oh, let me just search on AI, see what they
Right.
have for ideas. And as you can imagine, like not very creative because a lot of them already have been out there. So thinking
Exactly.
outside the box is huge there. And I think it's also cool just the passion too. I think passion is kind of not used as much where most people are like, oh, I just want to work for the team because like I have all the boxes supposedly based off of the resume, and that's only gets you so far. And so the fact that you were able to do that is incredible. And I'll pass it over here to Ryan because I know obviously you guys being coworkers and stuff, you spent a lot of time at U of M,
Yeah.
University of Minnesota together. So I'll pass it to Ryan here.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Victor. And yes, definitely had a lot of good experiences this past year at Minnesota. But what I want to hit on next, Yager, is actually kind of how you end up getting to Minnesota, because I think that's a really fascinating story. And definitely in getting to know you this year, I really kind of admired that. And one thing you just touched on was kind of your mindset. You mentioned, low ego, high output. But what I also think is kind of special about your career path so far, Yager, is kind of your mindset and getting back into sports. I think one thing, after Vermont, you decided to take another job where, it was not directly in sports, much different than even when you were an intern and an assistant at Vermont in the athletic communications department. So, what did you kind of learn about yourself in that year where you kind of left sports, and how did that kind of turn some, motivation for you to try to seek that out to kind of get back in the industry a little bit before you got to Minnesota?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks, Ryan. I remember I graduated spring of 2024 from the University of Vermont, and had the opportunity to stay there in that department. But I had another offer, and I got my degree in business and a minor in sports management. And I had the opportunity to go take more of a finance corporate job. And just wanted to test and try to use my degree, kind of mindset there, and went and did that for about a year. Great people, awesome company, really, really, really nice people. But I was kind of missing that aspect of sports and being on a part of a team and competitive and those kind of things. So I quickly was like, I need to get back into the world of sports. And Specifically, I really wanted to move out to Minnesota. Both my parents are from here, born and raised a Minnesota sports fan, but for better or worse. So I just was like, I need to get out to Minnesota, and I want to work in sports kind of thing. And lo and behold, I randomly just sent my resume and cover letter to my now boss, Paul Robnack, and was like, hey, if anything ever opens up position, I'd love to apply and interview, hear my qualifications. And he got back to me like the next day, basically saying, hey, we actually just had a position open up working for women's hockey, which you have experience in communications, which you have experience in. Can you interview later today or tomorrow? And so I hopped on a Zoom call the next day and interviewed, and it went well. Had a follow-up interview 2 days later. And then by the end of the week, I made an offer to me, and I emphatically said, yes, sir, I'll do that. Let's do it. And then, yeah, packed up my car, drove 24 hours out to the Midwest in Minnesota, and it's been home for about a year now, and it's been amazing. So
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. I think it's such a, unique part of your story. And I think there's something that a lot of other people can get out of it as well. I think Victor and I can attest that we get reached out to, all the time from people that are like, hey, I have this unique career path. Like, how can I get back in? And, especially examples like yourself, Jagr, where you say, hey, I did leave sports. I made that decision to say, hey, I'm going to try something else. And, kind of had that itch within you to, get back into it. And, especially that story with, like you said, just a cold outreach email. I think we suggest that all the time. And obviously, not always does it work out to get kind of what you would say is almost like a dream job for you, but it did in your case. If you never, even made the effort to do it, or I feel like even times people can say, oh, I've been meaning to write that email. I've been meaning to send it. Who knows if a week or two went by, maybe that opportunity wouldn't have always, been there for you too. So definitely a really good story, and I appreciate you kind of highlighting some of that as well. And yeah, I know you kind of have gotten through, kind of 1 year on the job, like you said. You talked about some of the, different, aspects of your job. But what would you say, Jagr, are some of the bigger challenges that you face over the course of your job? We kind of touched on earlier, working different, multiple sports as well. But what would you say in terms of, your experience this year, with the Gophers? What would you say are some of the bigger challenges or the bigger piece of adversity that you face in an athletic communications role?
yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think it's the easy answer is just time consuming. There's only so many hours in the day and in a work week, but when it's the busy season, it's busy, man. It's you're grinding, you're in it a lot, tight timelines, quick turnarounds on graphics, press releases, stuff like that kind of thing. But you gotta love it if you're gonna get into it and you're gonna work in sports. Everybody works long hours, but a lot of our hours are, at the rink, at games, that kind of stuff, which is in my mind doesn't feel like work because I love it and I enjoy it, and it's just what I would be doing in my free time anyway, would be going to games. So it's like I don't really count that, as part of my workload. But yeah, I mean that, and then I do women's hockey and softball as well here. So about 2.5, 3 months of crossover season for me is a little hectic and crazy, and I'm sure a bunch of SIDs can relate to that kind of feeling of you have a million things going on, and you don't want to let anyone down, and either coaching staff down. You want to make sure you're getting your stuff done and being reliable and dependable, all those good things. So yeah, just time consuming sometimes, but part of the job and the gig of the world of sports.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, I would agree. You kind of mentioned the time commitment, but yeah, I think there's maybe some hidden time in there. Like I remember it could even be like pre-game before a women's hockey game. You're at the rink 2 hours early and you're working on softball or you're working on something else too. It's like that's kind of some time where you're like, oh, okay, you can get some of those hours back if you're efficient with your time. And obviously, you kind of learn that through experience, as you did this year at Minnesota too. And another area I wanted to kind of dive in, you mentioned kind of at the start of the podcast, the kind of three buckets is how you classified it, the social side, media relations, sports information. But I want to kind of touch on the social media side because as you mentioned, it continues to change and you got to kind of continue to be innovative and learn about new trends and paying attention. But I think what you've done this year, with Minnesota is you've really kind of taken that aspect to the next level with you in terms of creating graphics and posting better social content. So what's kind of your kind of philosophy, mindset, or even advice to others that are also in charge of a sports social media account in terms of how you can generate more growth, through your efforts that you put in on the communication side?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think going on into those three buckets again, like social one's my favorite. That's where what I love to do. And we had a great year from the women's hockey side. We generated over 25 million impressions on Instagram, and had 10% growth followers on Instagram as well. And a lot of that is the Olympics, and we had some great plays and highlights that came out. But a lot of it is our creative team and department and coming up with original content and ideas that are good and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think just being, I don't want to say chronically online, but like just staying on top of the trends and what's in right now, and having kind of that vision to think ahead of, oh, this is, I see what this is what it could be, and kind of adapting and changing and evolving kind of maybe ideas that you see that are out there, is always a good thing. And just trying to stay on that leading edge, that front edge of the social space is always a good thing. So yeah, just kind of taking time each week, hour, 2 hours, and solely just think about what social content can I do for this upcoming month, and just have those ideas and a list of ideas, and just always have a list of things that you can do and social content you can put out. I think is super valuable for sure.
Totally. I think that's great advice. And especially a time like now where you mentioned you have your busy crossover season, but even the off season, sometimes it can be tough to think of ideas and content to put out. But like you put it, kind of living in that space, being online, just looking at what other people do. I think, yeah, I hear this a lot with like the NFL, that it's a copycat league, but you could say the same about athletic communications or any field, honestly, that, hey, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Just look at what other people are doing, see how you can apply it to what you're doing. And I know you've definitely taken a lot of steps up for the Gophers and even for your own professional development this year. So definitely appreciate you touching on that here a little bit as well. And just one more question for us. We'll get into our Flash Friday in a minute, but I want to kind of touch on some impactful mentors in your career as well next year, Jagr. You mentioned your boss now, Paul Rovnak with Minnesota, but I know there have been so many people that have left a positive impact on you and your career. And, I think the same is the case in all aspects of sports, but I think especially athletic communications, you work really closely with your coworkers in that office. So who are some of those impactful mentors that have left a positive impact on your career here to this point?
Yeah, 100%. I'll just go through each stop of my career, kind of going back to the University of Vermont. Ryan Manley, who I interned for, and just got me into the field of athletic communications in general. Just shout out to him. Super appreciative that he has helped me set myself on this path, kind of in career trajectory. So shout out to him, and then Nick Hall as well, at the University of Vermont, who does men's hockey there. Just great mentor. Always had feedback for me and gave me the opportunity I needed to continue to grow and develop myself as a well-rounded, SID, future SID at the time. And now here at the University of Minnesota, just surrounded by a million people that are super amazing. Paul, Rovnak, Michelle, Tarusi, and just Scott Slarks, who does men's hockey here, is a big mentor for me if I ever have questions. So just so many people to be thankful for, and have mentored me to this point in my career for sure. So
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you hitting on that. I know Victor and I, we always like to, remind ourselves even of the people that have kind of come before us, set a good foundation, allow us to get to do what we love to do on a daily basis and, continue to make an impact. And we know we like giving, that back in return to others. And I know you would be the same way on that too, Jagr. So appreciate you highlighting some of those mentors in your career. And with that being said, I'm going to pass it back off to Victor here. I know he's going to kick us off here for our Flash Friday segment. We do this with all our guests for the Front Office U Friday episodes. Get to know Jagr's personality a little bit better here before we wrap up. So, Victor, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, for a guy that works in communications, it might be a little bit tough. We might not be able to get you know get some good ones out there. But I do have two on my end. The first one is if you had an NIL deal, what company would it be and why?
Oof, good question. That is a good. I mean, I'm a big Raising Cane's fan. I'm not gonna lie. Like we don't have it out in Vermont where I'm from, and so especially when I first moved here, man, I was going too often, probably twice a week, kind of deal. So that's where my brain went to right away. Something food related for sure, for sure.
Well, if Raising Cane's does somehow get a hold of this podcast,
Yes.
highly recommend reaching out to Yager. Great promotional thing too. Like, hey, Yager signed with Raising Cane's, and they don't have to know your last name and keep them guessing. But that's an awesome one, especially with lunchtime right around the corner here, and definitely now feeling hungry. So, my other question, you're obviously a big Minnesota fan, and just thought about this when we were talking before the podcast. If you could make one trade that you think would help the Wild win the Stanley Cup, it can be with any player you can bring in. What player would it be and why?
Man, any player. My mind automatic. We need a first line center in my mind. That's first and foremost. So Larkin's out there floating around trying to get traded right now. So that's the one I'm like, oh, it's possible and would help us big time. So Dylan Larkin, I would say would be the number one for sure.
Yeah, well, I'm with you. I'm hoping that if we keep saying stuff like this, it'll actually happen versus just rumors and such. And now hearing, I think Detroit at this point, apparently their GM's like, oh, we'll only trade him if we can. So that's not great. Like we're Minnesota nice. Like just send him over. We'll take care of him for
Yeah,
the rest of his career. He's still got a good couple years, right? We'll give him some Raising Canes, right? Like you got
there we
your
go.
NIL deal there. So like obviously going to seal the deal there. But great answers there, and I'll pass it to Ryan here.
Yeah, appreciate that, Victor. Yeah, good questions on your end. My first one, let's say hypothetically here, Yager, you're going back to Burlington, so you're giving up Raising Cane's for a weekend. But when you do get to go back home, what is your favorite home cooked meal when you are back with your family? Is there a go-to food that you love to have
Oof,
when you're sitting down at the table?
that is a good question. And in typical me fashion, we're gonna go out to eat instead of home cooked meal. We're gonna go to Handy's Diner, downtown Burlington. Just great food, great atmosphere, family owned business. It's kind of a Burlington staple when you go visit there. It's just really nice family, and great food too. So if you're ever in the Burlington area, go grab yourself some lunch or like late breakfast brunch at Handy's for sure.
Love that. Love that answer. Nice little mom and pop shop back in
Yes.
Burlington, and can't go wrong with that at all. So appreciate that. So yeah, we've established you're a big foodie. You love going out to eat. I know from experience as well. You love to get active, play some games. Maybe some darts, some pickup basketball, some golf. So let's say hypothetically you are you got a group of four with you. So you're a foursome in golf. You got 2v2 in darts. You could get a little pickup basketball going. Who would be the three people that you would pick to spend a nice day with to get a little triple crown? You got a three-game duo coming up for you on a day off. Who are the three people, dead or alive? Anybody's on the table, whoever you want, Yager. But you got three people to pick with you for a fun night of activities.
Oh man, good question. I think first easy pick for me is I'm gonna pick LeBron. I think he just such a funny, memeable. Like you see him with the golf outing right now where he's the clip. He's just anything he does is just funny at this point in his career. So definitely LeBron. Um, I this is if I pick LeBron, I'm picking his buddy and his duo. Kyrie Irving was my favorite basketball player growing up. So I probably got to say him too. Uh, and then shoot, I got one more. Dang. All right, I'll try to not pick a NBA player. I'm trying to think. Maybe like Larry David. I think Larry David's super funny and just would be able to just break the ice and that humor is kind of right up my alley where it's just like very blunt and just like straight to you kind of thing. So that off the top of my head, I think that would be super funny and it would be a good time for sure.
Yeah, that's a heck of a group. Definitely a lot of laughs and probably some good
Yes.
competition too. I don't think LeBron and Kyrie
Yeah.
are going to go light on each other, whether they're playing
No.
darts or whether they're going to
They
the rim. So
they're
that
on
would be
separate
a
teams
pretty
for
fun
sure.
time.
Yeah.
You're right. LeBron, I mean, not even the hotels in Memphis, Tennessee are safe when LeBron's
Yeah.
out there on the golf course. So, I mean, hey, you're in for a good time. Maybe get the cameras rolling. Good content, perhaps some good
Great
content too.
content.
We'll tie it in there at the end. So, love those answers. Been a ton of fun to get to chat with you here on the podcast as well. I know, as Victor and I had mentioned, it was a ton of fun to get to experience the women's hockey season with you this past year and appreciate all those experiences. But for our listeners, before we wrap up, we always love giving an opportunity for you to shout out a way to connect with you. If our listeners have any follow-up questions of their own, maybe they're interested in the athletic communications world or have any follow-up questions from what they've heard today. For you, Jagr, what would be the best way for our listeners to reach out if they have any questions of their own to you?
Yeah, LinkedIn's always awesome, always great. Also, my email's on the Go for Sports staff directory there. So if you want to shoot me over an email, my first reply will have my phone number in there as well. So you'll be able to get that too. But yeah, please reach out if you ever have any questions or anything at all. Please do.
Awesome. We definitely encourage all of our listeners to do that. Be following up with people. It's a great way to continue to grow your network. Let Jagr know you listen to the podcast and build that connection for yourself. It's a big reason Victor and I wanted to start up this podcast, help those people that are looking to work into sports or maybe are already in it, looking to better themselves, learn more about their career, maybe improve their social media presence if they're in the communications world. Definitely follow up with Jagr and take him up on that. We'll put all the links here in the description of this podcast as well. So thanks again to Jagr for joining us. Thanks to Victor for co-hosting this one with me. And appreciate all the listeners for making it all the way through on this podcast as well. We'll be back again next Friday with a new episode. Take care, everybody.